want to talk to you guys about something here. So, I'm gonna explain this video here real quick. There are a lot of people in this world that there are a few out there that want truth, want you to be honest. I mean, for example, if you're in a relationship with somebody and they want you to be honest, be honest. And they'll say, well, I won't get mad as long as you're honest. Okay, well, but the honesty is like getting getting cut by a knife, a razor sharp knife, and that truth cuts into the person that you're telling the truth to, because it ain't something that you did. Maybe something that they did. Okay, there. That's the feeling. But when it comes to the natural order of things, honesty, like you want to be able to be honest. I did a video not about maybe I'll say half an hour ago or so. I was talking about a couple things, and one of them is I actually got a dislike on it. How the term customer service with a smile. And I did some gestures for painting of politicians, especially female politicians. But not in that matter, it was just more of an example. Because politicians, they will sell their political soul even for their own agenda, even for their own selfish greed. And I mentioned on Meatheads and customer service with smile. And because when you have business type people like George Soros, he's the guy that's throwing money at things, at people and stuff like that, But there are insane things, of what owners of corporations that with big money will buy any politician for any reason, any possible reasonable means of what they want, only to trade off what that other person wants. If you want this done, get this done. Fair trade, right? Okay, but you want to have that deal. George Carlin always talked about it in his shows before he died. He was always tell like it is, in your face type shit, of his shows. And that's what I was doing. I was being honest here, even about my generation, being, but there's things I've said that may have put. There's things I may have said that probably pissed off the person that gave it the dislike. And but that's fine. It's fine. But sometimes you have to eat humble pie because you don't like what's being said, being honest, And there are individuals that can't stand someone really out there drop the nuclear truth bomb on people, but you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be able to be honest with yourself. Now I've mentioned now the title was Taliban using WhatsApp. Right. Now I did mention that because it came out that they have been. But I also mentioned that too. They can say anything they want to say. That's fine. It's fine. That's their right. That's their human right. But one of the things I did mention was that what Facebook has allowed in the past. That's what I mentioned, and that's probably why I got the dislike, because I mentioned what happened to the 4 women of a video that Facebook allowed to be, and it was just most grotesque thing I've ever seen. Very, very, very grotesque, very inhumane, very, very wrong. There's things that the person that gave me the dislike, it wasn't the whole video in general, It's just that you have to look at the reality of it, man. You have to look at the aspect of the reality, man. Because I mentioned my generation, but I also mentioned the Gen Z and also the millennial generation. But I also mentioned half of the generation, because there's things that really I understand, because half of the both generations are not really paying attention. Which half of both generations of Gen Zs and millennials are waking up. That's what we're trying to get to the point here. I've had viewers on my, I've had people watch my videos, and they left comments very rarely. Most of the time I get these comment bots that I talk about, and these are what the bots are. These are comment bots. These are what they do, and they don't like me talking about it, about anything. Why? If you don't like at least some truth, then you're the one who's not really taking the time to pay attention and take the time to let it all sink in. I mean, there's nothing wrong with truth, honesty. Nothing wrong with all that. I have, in my age, I'm 45, and in my age, I'm learning a lot about life. I'm a father. I have a 22-year-old son, and even he's beginning to see how the world really is at a young age. He's a Gen Z. He's half of the generation that is waking up. Half of millennials are also waking. Every once in a while I'll go on to Stereo and we'll talk about things that the status quo don't want to talk about. There's a gal on Stereo who goes by the name of Noble. And she was either banned by Stereo or suspended by Stereo, or she can't comment or she can't talk. Now, on that part, I think that look, I like Stereo. I've been really enjoying going on there for it's a good place to just have a conversation, and now Noble is it's part of my generation, Gen X, and there's a lot of Gen Xers on Stereo. It's an app, and I think it's a really cool, really cool. And you can start your own broadcast on Stereo, your own podcast on Stereo. It's very interesting to be on there. You talk to a lot of people. But sometimes you will get. But it's about having a civil dialogue, a conversation, something that's worth to have. And because when you look at violence, what's violence? It's a term that can be any kind of violence. Violence can be verbal. Violence can be physical, mental, emotional violence. And people get hurt. They get hurt emotionally, physically, mentally. And so, I mean, it's one thing, What is the solution? A good civil dialogue to hash things out. On Stereo, there's things to talk about, different topics, and it's worth to listen. And my friend Noble, who got banned, and she's under a different name now, as Stereo banned me. So Stereo banned me, and I don't know how you could get banned on Stereo. But there are rules. Before you do a program on Stereo, there's things you cannot do. And I mean, I don't know what she's accused of. A buddy of mine, Curse Zero, couldn't tell me. But that's okay. But there's a lot of censorship that's really dragging stuff down, and it's going to end up where it's going to get to a point where people are going to leave social media. They're going to leave social media. And go to other places, other platforms where you can be yourself. You have a right to be yourself, but as long as that there's no any bullshit. I believe that, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, we have intelligent people on this planet. Some great speakers, some great authors, some great writers, some great, you know, a huge. I mean, this world is full of great, influential speakers. People with that mind. So, I see myself kind of like, Orson Welles to a degree, because he has a voice he's a voice of a generation, of his generation, of time when War of the World came on the radio. Forget the whole entire population. And he is a big influence on me. He was also against the status quo. When he wrote that movie, call it the movie, Rosebud, Citizen Kane. It was a kind of in-your-face middle finger to call it the empire he has, the empire. Hearst Castle, his Hearst, and there was a lot that he was against, and he did not. He was a powerful guy, and he could end your career in Hollywood or in whatever. And now, what comes to the truth here, I mean, you got people that, like today, they're talking about wanting to extradite Assange. There's a guy, he was an editor-in-chief for WikiLeaks. That's all he was, editor-in-chief. And they want to crucify the guy because of what he did. He released information, and he is a media guy. And absolutely, but they're wanting to take the guy out. But a judge has issues. There's a judge that has issues with that because of the human rights issue with prisons in the United States here. Prisons in the United States are very inhumane. And there are huge controversy about prison. Dude, inmates that are just like, man, dealing with inhumane things here, like conditions, like Attica back in the 70s and shit. There was a riot in Mexico in 1980 where it was like the inmates wanted better conditions, human rights conditions, where they get I wouldn't say a treatment. I would say like they don't want to live as like they just want a normal treatment because a lot of them aren't it for life, life, no parole. That means no parole at all, no parole. You have lifers. You have inmates that are in there for white collar crimes. Some murder, sex based crimes. Some serious, some like stuff that you wouldn't even want to hear about, but it does. You hear about it. That'll make you go, fuck. But the truth and honesty, now, thing is, if we tell the truth in the court of lies, we are guilty of telling the truth. But anybody that does tell the truth, they are crucified for it. They are absolutely crucified if you tell the truth in the imperial of lies. And the one that's telling the truth is the one that gets crucified for it. Daniel Ellsberg, he blew the whistle with the Pentagon Papers. Nixon wanted to silence anybody. He went after the papers. Okay? Chelsea Manning, same thing. The thing is, if you expose wrongdoing of what happened in the Middle East, holy crap, you're looking at the death penalty if you're found guilty of treason and the Espionage Act. Because Espionage Act, that's act is basically depends on the crime though. But in history, you got the Rosenbergs, who were sentenced to death for being a spy, spying. Both died in the electric chair, and it was like, really? At least give her life. But the thing is, it's a crime. It's a crime against the United States. If you commit a crime against the United States, you are an enemy of the state. You are a huge enemy of the state. You are like, dude, you are to them. You're garbage to them. Okay, you're garbage to them, and they're gonna take out the trash by putting you on old Smokey, on old Sparky, and send thousands of volts up your ass until you are dead. That's how the truth is always a casualty of war, and also in peacetime. That's why a lot of people don't want the truth. They're like, nah, we don't want to hear it. But the thing is, people want an honest government. Carlin said one time, you don't want honesty in government, because if honesty, the truth is always, if someone tells the truth, the whole shit will collapse. Which, will it? Depends on who's in charge. on who's in charge and who's front applying of the truth. Now, if you're a Democrat, telling the truth is probably the biggest guilt and the biggest crime you ever have, man. But there's always that question, like, I told the truth. Why are they so for the truth? Because they don't want. Because telling the truth is like making someone who lies a lot look bad. Why? If you are bullshitting people for a living, okay, you have to understand that there's a lot of people in power that love power, but they also love. They can be married into a family with very huge influence that would probably make you regret even told the truth, But in reality, everything that I talked about in the last video was straight from, I grew up in the 80s. I grew up in the 80s, and there were things I didn't understand. Did not really understand, a lot of things. But I grew up in the rate. I was born in the late 70s. Grew up throughout the 80s. When I was born, what was it? Not Ford. Carter was in office when I was born, and I grew up in the 80s under the Reaganomics and Bush's bullshit, and the thing I talk about is the factory growth. The 90s was the last great decade. Did we have the great 2000 decade? No. The 2010s? Absolutely not. Because, the 90s was a time where things were cool. Fashion, music, if you look at the 90s, what was the top selling shoe of the 90s? Air Jordans. Those, even after he retired, his shoes are still making bank, man, Is LeBron James making bank with the shoes? Fuck no. Because he had nothing what Jordan has. Michael Jordan was the guy. He was the guy that did things in NBA basketball that LeBron James couldn't even touch. And plus, Michael Jordan wasn't a wuss. He was a guy's guy. This guy was a dude, the dude of the NBA. Okay? LeBron James couldn't hold Jordan's jockstrap. Okay, Kobe Bryant, if he was still playing in his prime, Kobe Bryant would make LeBron James his bitch. Okay, Michael Jordan, even though he's retired, he's already making LeBron James his bitch. You know, that you cannot lie. That is a fact. That's a fact, friend. And there's a guy that was on ESPN. Was it? I don't know if it was a current or later on or way before. He said that Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan couldn't lace up LeBron James' shoes. Oh, come on, man. Kobe Bryant scored 50 points on Jordan, dude, in the same game. Do you think LeBron could do that? Oh, fuck no. Oh, hell no. LeBron James is too much of a bitch, dude. The 90s was the greatest decade ever. Ever. You know. When I meant that my generation was better than the millennials and the Gen Zs, I meant that. Now I was telling the truth. You go and talk to any Gen Xer who's my age, and they will tell you our generation were better. Better than the millennials, better than Gen Zs. By a huge margin. By a long distance. I'll tell you why. We did things that would make millennials and Gen Zs cry. We were the generation that been there, done that, stopped, gave a shit. We had no fucks to give for the millennials or Gen Zs because those generations were supposed to be the change for the future, big time. And where are they now? I would bet my bottom dollar that, you know, half of both generations combined are better than both other half combined. Because you look at half of the Gen Zs, half the millennials, they will tell you what's happening now fucking sucks. You know, I mean, the 90s, man, like, shit, dude. The 90s were the greatest decade of that time. And, because everything was better in the 90s, man. The music, the fashion, the style, everything that was from 90 to 99, that was the last greatest decade ever. What happened from 2000 to 2010? Nothing. Oh no, 2009, nothing. 2010 to 2019, nothing. Now, nothing. You know. And here we go again. We're in the third decade. Second year, third decade. And are now. I'm being honest here, guys. You know, go look at the last video and actually listen to every word I'm saying, because every word I've said is right in your face. You know, I've been doing this for, it'll be 10 years November, and for a long time, because, you know, we need that new generation to be what we were, to be able to look past all that bullshit, you know, all that bullshit. I mean, when you look at all that bullshit, who's really running the show? Okay, who's really running the show on the ground for BLM? White people, right? They run this shit. A good minority of white folk is, I mean, you know, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the entire thing. You know, black people are tired of the bullshit. 50 years of bullshit. Okay. And there are the young generation of black people, they don't see it. They don't see the older generation is. They're angry because the young generation is not seeing the frustration of the last 50 years. They want to assume. They no. And there's a video I came across. I've seen it at least a couple times, where in the background this young man has his mouth covered, and it said, "I'm oppressed." And it's from a young man, a young black kid. I'm thinking, like, you know what? You're not oppressed. You think you're oppressed. You're going to a college. You're an overgrown child going to that's at a overgrown. Well, you're an overgrown child who thinks you're oppressed at a overpriced daycare center. You're not oppressed. Your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, they were oppressed. But it did not get them down. They lived their life. They went through hell. What did you go through? Idiocracy. And there's nothing wrong challenging someone older in a more in a more intelligent way of challenging an elder who is a speaker, who's been there, done that, basically got a doctorate. And while you're trying to show your stuff, which is not a bad idea. Show that on social levels, political levels, all kind of levels here. But even in the market system, that person is playing chess and running circles around you with knowledge. It may bruise your ego, but you're getting a lesson. And sometimes you have to accept that the person that you're talking to is running circles around you, playing chess at the same damn time. There's nothing wrong with challenging the status quo at a mental level, of an ideal level. Sometimes we want to be that individual. We want to be able to be proud to be that we're going through this time. And so there's nothing wrong to admit, a defeat. Mental wise, so you acknowledge. What I meant by the last video that I did about an hour and a half ago, about how politicians are, and how they are basically prostitutes to the money people, the big money men, the hedge fund guys, the special interest groups. I meant every word. Whether you're a man or a woman in politics, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman in the seat of power. Whether you're a Congress, Senate, governor, or even president, they own you. They own you big time. You want something, they want something. And they're going to get it. But they need you in their pocket. Now, I mentioned before, a moment ago, that when I mentioned about the female politicians, about the knee pad thing and the customer service with a smile, that's what I meant. Metaphorically. Because you have female women governors and senators and congresswomen that have that same thing. They want something, but it's like they'll make a campaign promise. Promise to do that, promise to take care of this, but in reality, it's just a promise they cannot keep. You look at Dianne Feinstein. Been in politics for 60 years, since 1960. 60 years, man. 60 years, right? Look at Pelosi. She's been in office for what, 38, almost 40 years? Look at Maxine Waters, 44 years. That's right, 44 years. Chuck Schumer, 52 years. No. 53 years. I could be wrong. Joe Biden, 49 years. 49 years. And what have they done? Nothing. Nothing. Now, what would happen if little Miss AOC decides to turn on her party? You know, her and her Green New Deal. All of a sudden, she decides to be the next Pelosi or Hillary. What will happen to her? She wouldn't last in office very long. She's in what, her second term already? What, second term or not? Her Green New Deal would have costed a total of $100 trillion. Okay, total, and it would break the world big time. $96 trillion. Oh, fuck that shit. And then, now here's the thing. Some things were planned. There's always a plan. Always a plan. It don't just happen, it's planned. That's all those planned, you know. I mean, anybody with big money, they could be corrupt as a motherfucker, though. And you gotta understand, I mean, not everybody wants to live in 1984. Go read the book. Nobody wants a boot on their neck. No, nobody wants to be told to what to do, what to think, what to say. You know, I mean, it's one thing that we all don't want to happen. We do not want to be told what to do. Right? And what's the biggest part now? Okay? So here we are, we're living in this generation now. Supposed to be the biggest change. Supposed to be the change. Well, in the last video, I meant every word. And some of you did not like it. That's fine. I understand. Now, I'm Agent Grimlock. Agent of Farts, you know. If you're new to this channel, please share this video. If you like it, subscribe, comment below, hit the bell for notification. If you've got this transmission, you are the resistance. All of you guys, be healthy, one of the wise. I just want to see better. And it is scary. It is scary. Also, on next video. Peace out. Godspeed.